Now I would like to invite our second keynote speaker, Mary Crooks, who has served as the Executive Director of the Victorian Women's Trust since 1996. She has had a successful career in public policy and has led numerous innovative community engagement initiatives. In 2012, Mari was appointed as an officer of the order in recognition of her distinguished services in the public policy and advocacy for women's advancement. She was also recognized for her contribution to shaping public policy in Australia when she won the public policy category of AFR 100's Women of Influence in 2016. Mari is going to take us through the topic of about bloody time, the menstrual revolution we have to have. Over to you.
So, like Liz, thank you very much, Mahan, and your colleagues for organising this day forum and for giving me the opportunity to present at it. This, I'm sorry to say, but our wonderful book about bloody time, The Menstrual Revolution, we have to have is sort of out of print, sadly, because it's been in such demand. I just checked with my PA this morning, have we still got copies? And part of the issue won't affect you today is that it's been published in German last year, and now it's about to be published in Italian. That probably doesn't help you today. I work and live on Wurundjeri land in Melbourne, and I pay my respects to First Nations people, elders, past and present. And I guess I'd be saying since the 14th of October and seeing some attempts already to wind back acknowledgement and welcome to country, that I think the very least that people like myself and you need to be doing is to not allow that kind of rollback in this country. The defeat and the repudiation of First Nations people was bad enough. And if we now watch and have people start to roll these things back, it's even worse. It's not respectful. This presentation I'm making today has been a decade in the making in a whole lot of ways. The title, About Bloody Time, The Menstrual Revolution We Have to Have, I want to draw from that work we did to set an all-important context and context to Liz's comments as well. I want to take you straight to the concept of the menstrual taboo, because we wouldn't be talking about this if there was no menstrual taboo. And Karen Pickering and Jane Bennett, who are the authors of this book, but the three of us actually wrestled these constructs to the ground over many years. So the menstrual cycle is an important biological process of the body. It not only has the potential to create life, but it's a decisive indicator of overall physical health. Women and girls are trapped inside a deep paradox in our culture. The very thing that guarantees human life is something that is demeaned and condemned as humiliating and unsanitary and disgusting. The cycle occupies a curious place in our collective psyche. Instead of awe for its life-giving properties, our culture especially, it's not all of this the whole world round. There are cultures that actually celebrate this, but our culture has demeaned the menstrual cycle. It fosters and perpetuates feelings of disgust, of distrust, inconvenience, boredom and resentment. Our cultural practice across a society, whether it's in homes or schools or workplaces, in sports clubs, shrouds menstruation in negativity. We're discouraged from talking about it. Women are discouraged from talking about it, which is amazing because women are such good talkers with one another. But we don't talk about it. A lot of us operate from a sense of shame, and the whole thing has been shrouded in secrecy and silence. Now, generally speaking, a taboo lives or dies by the number of people who obey it, by its strength and resilience, and by popular understandings and broad social agreement. Taboos are built up, they're learned, they're passed on osmotically You don't see a taboo. You are affected by a taboo, and you can be complicit in the upholding of that taboo. The menstrual taboo has been a long, long time in its oppressive form of women. Philosophers such as Aristotle, for example, in 380 BCE, described women's bodies as being incomplete males, as it were, a deformity, and that menstrual blood was in fact a lesser form of semen. Hard to believe. But taboos don't automatically keep on being or being maintained. You can see them being broken down. Even seeing a lot of women in this room, a century ago, it was not appropriate to show your ankles. Even now, there is still a taboo about breastfeeding in public, but slowly and surely is being broken down. Men crying in front of others has been a taboo, and we see that, thankfully, starting to be broken down. So they can be built up, they can look really and feel really oppressive, but they actually can also be contested and changed. The menstrual taboo stems from a fundamental patriarchal belief system. It relies on traditional roles of what men and women do, men as the dominant and commanding players, women as the wives and the mothers, men wielding the authority as leaders, women as the fairer sex, the gentler sex in a patriarchal world. And women's bodies overall, they are both creating huge anxiety and contestation because they're simultaneously desired by men in a patriarchal world and scrutinised and even envied. But there's also a resentment because women's bodies hold enormous power, the life-giving power, for example. And that is what drives a patriarchal impulse to control women's reproductive life. Now, this is not about condemning men, but it is about suggesting that there is a complex and largely invisible set of structures in place that distribute power across our society and maintain social relationships. And it's in that context that we need to approach the taboo around menstruation. Patriarchal systems create and maintain an environment in which the menstrual taboo thrives. Everyone actually is complicit in some way: mothers, sisters, aunts, grandmas, teachers, classmates, managers, because we all have the power to reproduce and reinforce the taboo. And everyone alternatively has the capacity and the choice to challenge and work against it, to dismantle it and corrode it. And I think it's interesting that one of the sources of backlash to the work we've done and to the work that others is doing comes in fact from older women. And I think that is a demonstration, in my view, of the subconscious way we can all be complicit in the upholding of fairly oppressive regimes. I want to give you a quick story about Reginald Ansett, the Ansett Airlines, in the late 70s. He refused to take Deborah Wardley on as a pilot, despite the fact that she had thousands of flying time miles, despite the fact that she completed all requirements, despite the fact that she was a first-class potential to be a pilot. So Deborah Wardley took him to court in Victoria as one of the first cases before Faye Miles as the Equal Opportunity Commissioner at that time. And Faye Miles talks about the time when she interviewed Reg Ansett as to why was he not willing to take Deborah Wardley, or Laurie as she became known, on as a pilot. And he said, because she menstruates. Because she menstruates. And it wasn't simply, I think, a discomfort about maybe some blood on the uniform. It was more probably to do with the patriarchal notion that women can't be trusted when they're moody, they're irrational, and so on, which has been part of that centuries-long patriarchal culture. Anyhow, he lost the case, and she became an incredible pilot and a great pathbreaker. And more to the point, women at the time boycotted or girl-cotted Ansett Airlines, and he suffered a quite significant economic loss as a result of the boycott. If only women remembered that we have those activist powers at our disposal. It would be great to see a bit more of that kind of bolshy behaviour on a few other issues that plague women in our society. Ideally, when I want to read you out the last paragraph of our book, when the whole of our society sees women's bodies as dynamic, deserving of respect, and valuable in their own right, we will help to transform the world we live in. There will be less violence and less abuse when there's more respect extended to women's bodies. This is a vital part of the gender equality jigsaw. We cannot achieve full gender equality when women feel unsafe or discomforted or afraid to see the full range of their bodies and their potentials at home, at work. So contributing to this quest, helping people to see their bodies as powerful, is open to all of us. So the revolution has started, in my view, and can't be put back in the box. So I want to talk now about the research, and Liz has importantly emphasised that there is enormous heterogeneity across people who menstruate, and we get that, but there are also very significant patterns across the issue of menopause and menstruation. So we did research back in 2014 for several years. We surveyed over 3,500 women globally and in Australia. We also ran 22 discussion groups across Victoria, across all age cohorts. And these are quickly some of the key findings. 40% of girls and women reported mostly bad, negative experiences of periods. Girls 20 to 18 were even higher, 70% hated what was happening to them. What would make for a better experience? The time to rest was top of the pops. Cheaper products, not making excuses, being able to talk openly, being able to get some help from your partner or from your employer, and being able to buy without shame. What would make for better menopause, we asked, and people said that they needed to be better prepared. 46% of people said they were unprepared. Reliable information would be great. Being able to take time off would be great. Being able to talk openly, not make excuses, not have to pretend that you're sick, came back to us, and being able to ask for help. We then took part in a Circle In survey, helped them in their survey in 2021 of 700 people, and they were interested mainly about menopause at work. 83% of their survey reported negative associations with menopause. 58% said they found managing work and menopause really challenging. 48% said they struggled and dropped in their confidence going through menopause. 46% said it was incredibly stressful hiding it. 45% said that they would consider breaking away from work, but 72% said they couldn't for financial reasons. And 60% said they felt poorly supported in their workplace. So there's work to be done. So now let's talk about some key actions. So we had the research at our disposal that I mentioned to you. So, and remember that at any time, right now, for example, 10% of the world's population is menstruating, right now. And in an average lifetime of, say, 4 decades of the menstrual cycle, that's about 350 to 500 periods. So it's not insignificant in terms of time and effort and health implications. And I'm sure Jessica will talk today, Jessica Heron, she and I have worked together on this with her survey that she has provided leadership around with key unions. But most women surveyed feel they can't talk to their manager about menstruation and menopause. Most of them can't even feel that they can negotiate flexible work requirements. So from research to action, we had our research, We understood the negativity. We had located it in the context of a deep taboo. So at the Women's Trust, small outfit, only 10 to 12 staff at any time, mostly women, have two men on our staff. So we suddenly were faced with all of these findings and saying, well, what are we going to do about it? We can't just produce all of this research. So we introduced our menstrual menopause policy in 2017. And I think we were the first organisation in this country to do so. But if not the first, we were one of the first. And so there were 3 simple strands to our menstrual policy. One was that if you were at work, in the paid workplace, and you started to feel really uncomfortable, then you had permission from your manager to be able to seek a more accommodating place at work, either to lie down with your laptop for a period of time or go and take some fresh air, just take a little bit of time off even, have a lie down. But that you could actually try and adjust your workplace on the day or so of severe symptoms. That was the first strand. The second strand was that if you woke up one morning and you felt absolutely crappy, then you had the permission of your workplace to work from home and to be a productive worker that day. So you could stay in your jammies and do your work, and that was absolutely acceptable. The third strand to our policy was that if option A and B were not possible, and you felt really, really poor, and you knew in your heart of hearts that you couldn't attend to your work that day, then we said you can have up to 12 days of paid menstrual leave each year. We also said that it wasn't sick leave, because except for shocking cases like endometriosis and so on, by and large, the menstrual cycle is not an illness. And we didn't think it was fair for people to have to take a day's leave and then go to a GP and get a certificate for that. So we said 12 on the simple arithmetic that pretty much there were 12 months in a year, pretty much likely to be cycling on 12 occasions. I might come to that later, because there is an argument that we could have reduced that based on our take-up. So we produced our template for menstrual leave. It's been on our website ever since, and we've had over 8,000 visits to that page alone in the time since we introduced the policy. The outcomes in quantitative terms, small workforce, sure. Over 7 years, 42 days of paid leave taken from the organisation. That's an average of 6 days a year across the office. So that means that people hardly take it. They might take 2 or 3 days in a year, but there's certainly no one is taking 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, which is why I suggest it might be possible even to reduce the days by 50%. There is no doubt in our mind the outcomes have been nothing but beneficial. Women are more likely to take care of their health better. There is a more open culture. There is a more respectful understanding between the men in our staff. I think the men themselves have gone away from our workplace and had a more respectful understanding of their daughters and their wives and their aunts and their uncles and their grandmothers and so on, dealing with menstruation, menopause. There's more openness between management and staff. We have free menstrual products in the bathroom in case people are caught short. And I get a real kick out of the fact that someone will email me to say, I need to take a day of menstrual leave today. Is that okay? And I email back and say, fine, just get your form into Wilfredo, and the form goes into Wilfredo. So there's no stigma, there's no shame, it's open, it's respectful. And I think that our staff, we can't pay them enormous salaries, as in the commercial world, but we can certainly try and provide the best possible working conditions. So we've retained, for example, some of the public holidays that Jeff Kennett took off every Victorian worker as part of that. But providing menstrual leave, there is no doubt, it has made our staff feel as though they are valued, they are supported, and they appreciate that it's one of the suite of conditions that makes it an attractive workplace. So, from research to action, our policy, and then in 2021 we published a document called Ourselves at Work, and you can download that free of charge from our website, Ourselves at Work. And that just provides examples of corporates and others who have been introducing menstrual and menopausal leave, and it gives you a series of really practical steps where you can start to create the change in your workplace. Working up a policy, looking at what others have done, doing a workplace audit, taking account of the temperature of the building, for example, because the fact of the matter is that our workplaces in 2023 have been man-made for a couple of centuries, literally. They've been constructed and designed by men and for men. And as Liz pointed out, the more that women have come into workplaces, the less we've made adjustments for different bodies. And we constantly have a tussle in our workplace as to the temperature control because the boys want it hotter and we want it cooler. But there are questions about even appropriate uniform, whether uniforms have to be designed to fit different bodies, and making those flexible adjustments, being able to go and take a walk, being able to go and sit down for a while with a cool drink and so on. So workplace audits, but whatever the case is, what is critical is conversations and dialogue. Conversations, allyship, building up relationships with people you can trust in your workplace in terms of management who might listen. But we're talking about the potential for workplaces to become modern and progressive rather than woke and inefficient. And I do believe, Liz is right, I haven't seen that there's a lot of research on this, but my hunch is that nothing but benefit actually flows from more modern and progressive workplaces where the needs of people, gender diverse, men, women, gender diverse people, are able to be responded to sympathetically. This is why we have responded this week, for example, to the invitation to take part in the newly announced Senate inquiry into menopause and menstruation from the Community Affairs Committee. So we will be in there making a big fat submission by February 2024, because a decade ago, 5 years ago, 2 years ago, a year ago, there was no sign of a Senate inquiry. So it's a really good marker of the kind of progress that's underway to bring menstruation and menopause out of the shadows, to dismantle this taboo, smash it to the park, because it is oppressive. It is oppressive, and it denies a whole lot of agency and health implications and so on, and respect for relationships between men and women. So let me finish on that note by saying there are three, I think, really important resources to start your journey if you haven't journeyed far yet. One is Ourselves at Work, that you can download for free from our website. Two is the Circle In report that I think is still available on their website, Circle In, called Driving the Change, Menopause and the Workplace. Great little resource, really clear and well set out. And the third one is to connect with Sydney and Elizabeth's Body at Work project, because they are assembling, as you would hope and respect, very, very good academic research around this and rigorous thinking, as you saw in Elizabeth's presentation, and you'll hear from Sydney this afternoon. So there are lots of other resources. In fact, it could swamp you, but there are three simple connections you can make that will take you far if you're going to journey along the road to dismantling the taboo and getting better workplace outcomes. Thank you.